What's up? This is T-Briz from Briz Beats and T-Briz Rock Instrumentals. We are doing a two-part video on how to make your own soul instrumental, which you could then use as a soul sample or do whatever you want with. I'm going to show you the final output of what we're going to come out with at the end of both of these videos. Here's what that sounds like right now. All right, if you're interested in making that or something like that, you can watch these videos, follow along, and either replicate exactly what I did or take the knowledge that you learned from these videos and apply it to make your own soul instrumental, make your own soul samples so you don't got to worry about copyright issues and whatever. Let's get into the tutorial so we can start getting into it. This is a two-part tutorial with two videos. This video is all about the layers, the instruments, the notes, the VSTs, a little bit of the mix going down here. I don't want to get too focused on mixing. This is more about building the song. We have 15 channels here, 14 VST instruments, and then one audio file, which is a drum loop. That's the only thing we didn't use VST for, was the drums. And in the second part of this video, which I'll link down in the description or you can find it on my channel, we're going to arrange this. We're going to make it sound even more vintage, like it came off a record and like it was recorded to tape. So let me give you an example. The thing I played in the beginning of this video where we showed the final output, this is actually what it sounds like inside of this project. Here, take a listen. So that's every single layer playing all at once. Everything. For now, we're working inside of one pattern only. Let's start to break it down. We'll get into the drums first, because that's easy. It's just an audio file. And if I click right here, it's going to locate the sample in the browser. You see it opened up in my browser here, Vintage Soul Loops. And I use this one right here. This is a drum loop audio pack by Big Fish Audio. For drums, to get a more live drum sound, I decided I'd do some drum loops and mess around with that. Here's what the drums sound like. Just soft, old, and vintage. So the drums are pretty simple. It's that audio file. And then I'll also point out right now that the drums, you'll see they're routed to the master over here, but then I have them routed all the way over here to this room reverb. I routed this using Fruity Send. You see this mixer slot right here on the drums for Fruity Send. That's what I'm using to send all of my instruments to the room reverb insert. Because my goal for this project was to try to make the VST instruments sound more realistic. And one strategy for trying to make them sound more realistic is to give them all one room reverb sound, so it sounds like maybe they were all played in the same room all together, and give them sort of a live feeling. I have a tutorial on more about Fruity Send and how that actually works, so if you're interested in that, I'm going to link that down in my description as well. But for now, I'll just say that's how I am sending drums to the room reverb. And let me show you an example with the room reverb off and on, just so you can see what a difference it makes. Here it is with it off. And now let's turn it on. Something that's not required as you're doing this project, but I have sections, so my piano sections all go to a group. Here's the piano 1, piano 2, piano 3. They all go to the group piano, and the group is the thing that I route to the room reverb. So essentially, all those pianos make it to the room reverb because they go through the group, and the group goes through the room reverb. I'll talk more about that in a little bit. But let's wrap up the drums. That's it. You'll see I got an EQ on here, but I'm not going to explain the EQ too much throughout this video. This is more about creating the song. I want to move on to the piano section because it's really where I started when I was making this track. Let me show you the plugin I used. The Maverick. Dirty Old Grand. A lot of the instruments we're using in this video are drawn from the inspiration of another YouTube video that I watched. That video is titled, Can We Recreate the Motown Sound? It's on the channel called Reverb. I'll link that video in the description. It's really good. Also, if it just sounded like it was a soul type instrument, I tried to find VST instruments with those qualities and just put them in here. So that was the plugin. Here's the notes. And this is what it sounds like in context. Just the piano. And how about the bass and the drums so we fill it up a little bit. Let's listen. really, really simple. And I started there because I knew if I start really simple with just 2 chords, that the other instruments that layer on top of this are just going to fall right into place. That's the whole point. When layering and structuring melodies after this, I want to be able to hum to this. I want to be able to hear a melody in my head to this. And this is just doesn't distract me from ideas. It actually leads me to them. All right, so that's simple enough. That's the first piano, but we wanted a bigger sound, like an orchestral sound and multiple pianos. So I went and found another piano. Here it is. Here's the plugin. Wurlitzer Vibrato, it's called. Big Fish Audio Vintage Rhythm Section. This is a great plugin, by the way. I really just picked this one because it just has like a soul sound to it. And now let's listen to this one in the midst of those other instruments as well. Here we go. Kept it simple again. This one is the same chord structure as the first piano that we started with. The only thing is we livened it up a bit. We added a couple chops in there and made it sound like the piano player's fingers were kind of dancing on those keys within those chords, and, you know, we give it a little bit of bounce kind of. So that's it for that. That's the Wurlitzer. Let's move on to the next piano. We'll try to keep it going now because I know I kind of rambled on in the beginning about a bunch of stuff. Let's try to stay focused on these instruments. E-piano is next. Here is the plugin. Take a look at these settings. This one comes from Contact Factory Selection. I believe that one's free. So go, I don't know, go look it up. Let's get into the E-piano and see what we did here with the notes. It's just one single note on every bar within the same chord structure that I used before. And you know what? Let's mute these other 2 and play just the E-piano because it's just one note. It might get lost. So we want to hear it. Let's listen. Simple. It just gives it a little bit of a glimmer. When these are all playing all together, this instrument gets lost in the mix in a way. But when we arrange this later, there might be a part where the only thing that's playing is this. And we got this here because we put this layer in. You know what I mean? All right, let's move forward on this. So just like I was talking about before, the E-piano is routed to the group piano. All 3 of these pianos are routed to the group. In fact, let's mute everything and let's just listen to the group of pianos, how they sound together, what that sounds like. Little bit of panning here. Let's point out this group piano fader here, this insert track. It's got all the pianos going to it. It's routed to the master, and I'm using Fruity Send to route this to our room reverb. So it gets kind of put together with all the other instruments in this track to give them that sound like they were all played in a room together with a live band. As close as we can with VST instruments. The other thing I could do with the group fader is I could do a mix for the whole section. I could do some sort of effect. I could do some sort of compression to glue them together. I could play around it. It looks like I threw this thing called Shapeshifter on here. It sort of does a little bit of compression and saturation and adds a little bit of color to the instruments that you run through it. And like the name says, it shifts the shape. It definitely does that. And check out these presets. Bunch of stuff in here that sound really cool. Go get this and slap it on something to play with it and see how it sounds. All right, that's the piano section. Now we're going to go into the horn section. Let's get into the plugin first of all. Here's the trumpet. It's Big Fish Audio Vintage Horns. Here's the settings. If you're interested, let me close out of it. Let's get into the notes. I limited what I did here in the notes because I'm limited to how real the trumpet sounds. So I figured if I just played a short burst on the 2 and 4, you won't hear the trumpet that much except for a little burst and sounds a little bit more real. And plus, that's something you'll see in soul music anyway. You'll see the horns just playing on the 2 and the 4, like. See, that's a 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, just in case you didn't know what I meant by on the 2 and the 4. And that's it, those short bursts. And this is an articulation. If I were to take this note and drag it all the way out, it's set to play that short burst articulation on purpose. Because watch, even if I drag that out, it still plays a short burst. See? Doesn't matter how long that note is. If you really wanted to make this stuff sound real, you could get in the piano roll, you could play with different articulations, you could try to slide notes, you could do a whole bunch of different things, but we wanted to keep it simple for this video, so we went with these little short bursts, 2 and 4 notes. And how about the notes? Really simple. Again, I kept it really simple. Just the same 2 back and forth. I think that's it for the trumpet. We're going to move on to the saxophone. And I think with the saxophone, first of all, let me show you the plugin. It's Big Fish Audio Vintage Horns 2. We got the retro R&B tenor sax. Take a look at those settings if you're interested. I think I left a lot of the default stuff on here just to arrange a track quickly and make a video. But let's check this out. Let's put these notes side by side really quick so we can see what's going on. So I can't open 2 piano rolls at once. So what I did is took a screenshot over here of the trumpet, and here is the saxophone on the right here. See, the saxophone's also on the 2 and the 4, rhythmic-wise. It's basically playing like a rhythm instrument right now. The notes that are being played on the trumpet aren't the same notes that are being played on the sax, but the notes together make up a very simple chord comprised of 2 notes. You see this? The trumpet's playing F5 here, while the sax is playing C5. F5 and C5, that makes a chord together. What's the name of that chord? I don't know. Leave it down in the comments section. Like I said, don't know music theory, but I know when you put those 2 notes together, it sounds good. All right, so now let's listen to those 2 together. You hear the sax in there? It's a little lower. Really simple stuff. I mean, that's it. So we got the trumpet, the sax. We're getting through our horn section here. Let's get into the trombone and look at that one. Let's see what we got for our plugin here. Oh, would you have guessed it? Big Fish Audio vintage horns. I went through a phase where I bought a lot of Big Fish Audio stuff. Anything that had the word vintage in it, I kind of just went crazy. If it says vintage in it, I want it. You know what I mean? All right, take a look at those settings. Let me close out of this. Let's bring up the notes for the trombone. We're getting a little bit different with the trombone. I think this is the first point in this project where we added some more movement to the melody and chords because we're kind of traversing up a little bit with each chord. There's a couple. Let's listen to it. Let's just listen to it. Yeah, that's it for the trombone. Again, there's an EQ on here. I'll show it to you, but that's really out of context without everything else. It's just, you know, I was trying to get it to sound to my ear the way I thought it should sound. So here's the group for the whole horns. And again, we got our fruity send, so it's hooking that up to the room reverb. And we got the shapeshifter on here too. Probably just wanted to saturate the horns a little bit because this adds some distortion, and adding some distortion to the horns could make them sound a little bit more realistic. They're not going to sound real, but they'll sound pretty real-ish if you pretend a little bit. It's all good. All right, how about we play the pianos and the horns together? Let's see where we're at right now. That's it for the brass section for the horns. Now we're getting into one of my favorite parts, the strings section. I love string sections. I'm going to mute everything but the bass and the strings. Let's listen to that as a little preview before we dive into each one of these. Really simple. And like I'm listening to it now and I'm like kind of like spice it up a bit and do some more stuff with the strings, but I think I'm just going to leave it the way it is. It's layers. It's about layers and it's going to sound really good with all the layers playing. Violins 1. Let's see what the plugin is. Big Fish Audio vintage strings. Take a look at those settings. I don't really have much to talk about when it comes to the settings because I didn't change the settings too much. That's it. Here's the notes. So let's listen to these. So it's very simple again. As you can see here, it's just that chord that's very similar to the very first chord that we made our pianos with. Then we got another chord, then we go back to that first chord, and then a little variation on the final chord here. And it just kind of fits, you know, it's one of those things where I hum it out and it just kind of fits in there. So there's the notes for that. Let's bring in the second violins. Let's take a look at that plugin. BBC Symphony Orchestra, the free version. If you don't already know about this, get into it. It's free. You just got to go online and fill out some little form or something, and then 2 weeks later they give you a code and you've got all of these amazing orchestral sounds. Take a look at the settings. I'll point it out. I got the tremolo on here to make the strings sound like they're vibrating a little bit, is the way I like to say it. And let's check out those notes on violins too. Wow, does it get any simpler than this? Here's just that violin section with the drum and the bass. And it's just back and forth. But you know, if you're listening in your head and you're humming something and I can hear it doing something different. I almost want to change it right now. I kind of want to move these up and see what that sounds like. Let's play it. Let's put it back the way it was. But you see, you know how it is being a music creator. You hear something else and you want to mess with it. And then I got to remember I'm making a YouTube video. I'm not really making the song right now. Maybe I'll come back and change that later. All right, we're all good. That's what that one sounds like. We saw the notes. Let's get on to the next one. It's the celli, which means multiple cellos. That's the celli section. Here's the plugin. Here's the settings. Close it out. Let's look at the notes. This one's got a little bit more movement to it. Let's play this one and let's try to pop in and out some of the other strings because I really want to hear them kind of together too, you know, a little bit. Sounds pretty good. Let's see what the violas are doing. Let's just pop over to those. We'll look at what it is. BBC Symphony Orchestra again. Violas, take a look at these settings. Let's turn these on. Let's mute everything else. Let's grab the notes up. Let's just listen to this and see what it sounds like. And again, I'll point out in the group of the string section, we do have some mixing going on there as all the other groups and all the other instruments. We're sending it to the room reverb using Fruity Send. Got a video on that, link in the description. Reminder. We put a little RC20 retro color on this. Looks like I just wanted to distort them a little bit because there's not much else going on, and also messed with the EQ range a little bit down here. Check out these settings. I won't get too into that. Like I said, I'm staying away from too much of the mix talk today. And then a parametric EQ. Couldn't tell you. It just was, you know how they say that I was eyeing it out. I was earing it out. I was just earing it out on that one. So I eared it out and that's what I came up with. All right, let's get out of that. Let's get into this. We got the guitar section. It's the final section. But I guess before I show you the guitar section, we should play everything together up until this point. The keys, the horns, the strings, all those sections all at once since we just reviewed them all. Let's listen. All right, cool. You know what? We've gone all this way and haven't talked about the bass. And yet the bass has been there. It's been playing. And the bass was a big one where I watched that video about Motown and I saw the qualities that they were talking about. They were using a Fender P bass, flat wound strings, gets a real plucky sound out of it. And they kind of muffled it too a little bit. Anyway, listening to the bass in that video and then looking at this plugin, Scarby Rickenbacker bass, I found Neck Pure DI PM. Sound-wise, it sounded pretty close to what I was looking for, so I went with it. So there's the plugin, and then here are the notes with all that simple stuff going on with all the other layers that we have. Here's the bass dancing around, going for a little bit of a walk. Let's listen to it. Well, to be honest, we've been listening to it this whole time, but let's just listen to it with the drums and the bass so we can really focus on it. Really rhythmic, really simple too in a sense. I mean, you can see if I highlight these notes here, the bass itself is sort of grounded in these two notes here. F3 and A sharp 3 looks like. But there's a little fill at the end of each bar that makes it a little bit more interesting, gives it a little bit of bounce, and makes it feel more like a melody. And it just kind of goes with the drums, like with the kick drum. But that's where the little fill comes in at the end. All right, so that's cool about the bass, right? Just like everything else, bass is going through the room reverb using Fruity Send. Let's ignore the EQs for now. I probably just rolled off some low end because vintage music, because of the mediums they use for recording and playback, didn't have as much low end as today. So I bet, well, it looks like I did this too. Maybe I was trying to make it sound more plucky. I want a plucky sound, but anyway. Bias effects. This is an amp simulation software and guitar and bass pedal effects software. I gotta say, the Scarby Rickenbacker bass sounds pretty damn realistic the way it is. And then an amp simulation software plugin. So yeah, that's what's going on with the bass. That's it. Now we can get onto the guitar section. Let's look at the plugin. It is this one, Contact Factory Selection Rock Guitar. And I use the same guitar for all the guitar spots in this section here. So this one was playing on the 2 and the 4, just like the trumpet and the sax. Here it is. Let's listen. Back to the simple stuff. That's it. It's just 2 chords skanking back and forth, you know, just like the piano was, just like the trumpet was, just like the sax was. This is one of those instruments, just kind of holding down some rhythm here for us. I don't have any mix going on here. If I wanted to run this thing through that bias effects, like I was just showing you with the bass, it might make this guitar sound a little bit more realistic. In the mix, this guitar playing on the 2 and 4 with the trumpet and the sax, let's play them all together. They actually blend together to sound pretty good. Let's listen. I don't know. Maybe I take that back. They sound fake as hell. I don't know. It's good enough for VST instruments. Anyway, let's move on and listen to the rest of these guitars. Guitar solo. Call it guitar solo, but I think it's actually the main melody. It's this one right here. It is also Contact Factory Selection Rock Guitar. Here's the settings if you're interested. I'm going to close that out. Let's take a look at these notes. Now we're getting into an instrument that's really playing a melody here, and let's go ahead and listen to that. Pretty cool, right? So on this one, right, that one does sound a little bit more real than the first one that's just skanking. And this one has some bias effects on it, and I think that's part of it. You know, usually what I do is I'll slap bias effects on. You can double click something like this, and it'll bring up all the different amp head and cabinet combinations that they have in here. And you can just kind of play it and then switch them and listen. You find the one that you like, the one that's kind of like the sound that you're going for. And I just doing that, I've actually changed what I originally had on here. Was it the jazz combo, 77 jazz combo? I think that was it. All right, if that wasn't it, now that's what it is. It's that now, so all good. So another great way to get your guitars to sound real. And also, just a little side note, having this plugin isn't just for guitars and basses. You can run keyboards through this. You can run your horn sections through this. You can run samples, straight up samples that you rip off of like vinyl or from the internet or whatever through this, because it just adds a different color and a different texture, a different sound to it. So just a little side note on that. All right, let's get the guitar embellished. I know what this is all about. I really liked that end part of the guitar solo right here. I think it was this. I love that. And it kind of goes with the bass. The yeah. So I just wanted to embellish that with another guitar part that beefed it up. So that was the main purpose of this. Guitar number 3, here it is. It's a rock guitar, same thing I used for the other guitars. I just imagine in my head that by the end of this, putting this project together for this video, I was just like, all right, I've done all these tracks. I need to do guitars, and I don't even care about looking for different guitar plugins. I'm just using Contact Factory Selection for these 3. That's probably my mindset for this, to be honest with you. But not only did I add that embellish here, I just did a little one note thing to add a little something to actually to use the space. So let's listen to it here. There's that embellish at the end that I wanted, because it beefs up the bass line and the other guitar part. I love that. Anyway, yeah, so that's that a guitar embellished part. And we also have bias effects on here. And actually, I think this is the plugin that I screwed up before when I changed the amp head. I think I had the 77 Silvertone V2. Something about this plugin, they make the amp heads look like real life amp heads, but they change the names. I guess copyright infringement, trademark, whatever it is. So if you're like looking for a certain kind of amp, like a Mesa Boogie or a Marshall or an Orange or something, something, you'll find it in here and you'll look at it and you'll go, oh, that looks like it, but it'll have some funny name to it or something. So I don't know what the actual real amp for this one is, but I like the way it sounded. All right, so that's it. That's every single instrument in this project. We reviewed all of them. There's still some more stuff to do. So part 2 of this project is coming in another video. It should be out in a week or 2. So subscribe to the channel. Also like the video, leave a comment, please. I appreciate that stuff, guys. I really do. In part 2, we're going to go over some of the effects on the master fader on this track. We're going to arrange what we made in this video into a full song. We're going to bounce that song down to an audio file, bring it into a new project, and make it sound even more vintage. The goal is to try to make it sound like it was recorded to tape and then played off a vinyl record. Guys, I hope you enjoyed the video and I hope you learned something today. And for the outro of the video, I'm going to play the arranged version of this song. So it's almost like a little preview of what's coming in the next video. So appreciate it, guys. Have a great day. Peace out.